Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Lianne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
Hey, listener. We are back with another episode of Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, and I am so honored and excited to have with us today Marissa Nelson. Now, Marissa is very special to our hearts because Marissa is one of Carol's clients, and what is quite fun and unique today is actually Carol is flying in an airplane, and so I get to be up close and personal with Marissa and really get to unpack and uncover just her greatness and her gifts and her passion to really create intimacy with yourself and with everybody else. And Marissa, you said this right before we started recording, right? It's not just about intimacy in the bedroom, but it's also what it looks like in the boardroom and when you're out in life. And I shared with her, I was honest with her, and I said, you know what? When I started this leadership work several years ago, I heard the word intimacy a lot, and it really, it was difficult for me to say. And now, I see it multiple times today with all my leaders. So Marissa, I'm so excited to have you here today. I'd love for you to take a second just to introduce who you are. And then, I want to unpack a little bit, of course, your journey working with Carol, and then really lean into, the intimacy piece as a leader. And so that becomes, a comfortable word that we can all say, right, without stumbling upon it.
Yes, everybody take a deep breath and say intimacy. It's a great word. It's connecting, it's energizing, it's life-giving, and when it's done well, it's rewarding. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. My name is Marissa Nelson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, award-winning sex therapist and sexuality educator, and founder of Intimacy Moons Couples Retreats. I am the couples and sex therapist to Fortune 500 executives, as well as a femtech founder of upcoming app Fertility Haven, which is an AI-enabled coach to support women through family building to menopause and really supporting their partners and helping them get the mental, sexual health, and reproductive support that they need and that we all deserve. So with that, I am so happy to dive into all things intimacy and relationships.
So before we head there, I'm really curious to know, to unpack a little bit of how you came across Carol and started looking at doing some of the neuro work and how you've noticed it impact you in your business, in your growth. And when by able to identifying, right, neutralizing and erasing some old thought patterns that didn't serve you or don't serve you, how that's really supported you and what you've been able to create now in your life and your business through the neuro work and the process that Carol and I both do with our clients.
Well, it's so interesting because I come from it through a relational lens and through a sexuality lens, and doing the neural work. With Carol, I met Carol at a conference, and we were just like magnets. We were like fast friends. I feel like I sat next to her the whole time. Like we were talking, and we knew that we wanted to work together, hang out together at a minimum. And when she really started talking about, all the ways in which our limiting beliefs stop us from really being able to have the wealth, the love, everything that we want, it really kind of took me by surprise because I'm a therapist, y'all. I did my work. I'm doing my work, right? But when you really, Carol will tell the story, but when we met at the conference on the spot, I felt like we started doing an exercise. And she was like, yeah, let's examine some of your belief systems. And, candidly, having grown up single parent mom, first generation to this country, wealth is not something that we talked about. Wealth was something that happened over there to other people and that we had to hustle and work hard for. not just wealth, but we just had to hustle, work hard for whatever we had. And the goal was to have a better life than you had for your children to go to college, for your children to have an advanced degree, or hopefully for you to become a homeowner and have a picket fence. And that was the dream. But of course, I feel like I came out into the world and I'm like, I want everything. So what is so what does that actually like look like? Especially when I, as a woman of color, have had a lot of different messaging around money and what I was capable or possibly even deserving of having. So, talking to Carol and us unpacking what some of that meant, there were lots of belief systems that came up that were very surprising to me because the subconscious mind is an interesting place. So understanding that, many times when we're talking about unconscious belief systems, we can be talking about safety, emotional or psychological safety. For me, it was about relationships and what does it mean to be in like healthy, connecting relationships. And somehow along the way, perhaps my messages around money were entangled with relationships and dynamics that did not serve me. And so I think that as we start kind of like uncovering and looking at things and trying it on for size, it's scary, it sucks, it's wonderful. And I think that I've really throughout the process been able to see things very differently. I operate from a different place. I walk in believing not just of being worthy and deserving, because it's not just something that I say, but it's because I innately am, because I was born and I deserve all the things. And so now when I even talk to clients and when I work with clients, I mean, I'm working with them from my own modality, but I'm also understanding, like, let's talk a little bit about resistance, because that's a thing that we don't talk about. And resistance usually happens when we're leveling up. Because you used to think like, oh no, I don't ever want resistance, and that's what I'm working for. Yeah, and I remember asking Carol this. I was like, I don't want any damn resistance. Like, why does this thing keep showing up? Like, how can I thought the work was just to like get rid of it so that I could really wealthy and I just never have to think about resistance again. But actually the key is about how to snuggle with it, how to, make peace with it, how to acknowledge it, how it's a part of even, in the therapy world, of some of our lost parts of ourselves. You don't bring shame and criticism to it. You don't push it away. You bring it close and you understand that these are some aspects of you that just want to be safe, just want to feel love, maybe had some misunderstandings or some belief systems that didn't serve us. But it's all about bringing all the parts of us into integration, and that's including that inner brain resistance. So it's been wonderful. I feel like I've been able to unleash, lots of different opportunities in my life. I'm doing meaningful work that matters to me. I don't wake up wondering, oh, I wonder what it is that I need to be doing in my life every day. It's about inspired action. It's about working with people that I desire to work with, doing meaningful work, going bigger than I ever thought that I would. I mean, if you told me that I'd be building an app, I'd be like, what? That's insane. But we're doing it. And, at the end of the day, we're speaking on world stages and I'm unstoppable. So, thank you and thank Carol for, the amazing learning. And it goes to show you that you can know a lot, but this is life and this is about the evolution of learning. And you're always going to have to learn. You're always going to have to level up and you're always going to have to skill build. So I'm grateful for it.
Oh, and it's funny when you're talking about that resistance piece, and I go back to like even that term intimacy, right? That was information. And I think that's what's really powerful to notice, like for you listeners who are listening today, like, where is some resistance coming up or maybe this uncomfortableness, and really embrace it. I love how you talk about like cuddling it, right? Like it's your new teddy bear because it's giving you information, right? I always say to my clients, like if you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're not playing a big enough game, because our brain's job is to keep us in the safe and familiar. And if you're playing a bigger game, it means that you're out of the quote unquote comfort zone and you are leveling up. And therefore, yeah, your brain is going to communicate to you, and just being able to unpack what's coming up for you around that is super powerful. And I find it really interesting, right? Like even for yourself, right? You said, well, I'm a therapist and I work on relationships. And yet for you, right? All the years back, that it was something that was impacting how you're showing up. And it's beautiful. I'm so excited for what you've been able to create now, being unleashed and unstoppable with your brain and just with the app, the impact you're creating and just like your all your speaking engagements and everything, all these opportunities, like you're able to create such a bigger impact with this now, right? And I love even how you said like when you're working with clients, you're able to go places and those places where maybe you haven't been before, like by having this newfound knowledge, right? So it's so beautiful to see that.
It is, and thank you. Yeah, because it's like I knew a lot. So I wasn't walking into this, completely blind. However, I think that it's just new tools in your toolbox because I think before you'd be looking at it from the standpoint of perhaps like lost parts, or you'd be looking at it through a different theoretical framework versus really working with what you have and the tool of your brain and really understanding the subconscious mind and how our belief systems and that cognitive dissonance. I always talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And because people are like, I want wealth, I want really, and for you and for me too, we unpack about what wealth looks like, and like people sometimes feel very uncomfortable, especially with wealthy clients, the fear of losing it or what will happen, or people being taken advantage of. With relationships and intimacy is very much like, I want relationships, I want a great marriage, I want intimacy, I want better sex, I want more sex, I want a great partner, I want to attract love in my life. This is what people say. On the other side, what are people's actions and how is that completely in conflict with what you say that you want? And so I very much am helping people mind the gap. Like, how do you
Mhm.
mind the gap between what you say you want and the actions, the belief systems that are actually going to get you to what your desired dream state, which is to have all of these things that you desire? Because you can't say, I want connection, I want love, I want all of these things, but we don't know how to play nice, or we don't know how to invite closeness into our life. And we value our independence and autonomy so much that when it comes to having someone else, we may are relearning how to be in connection with others because of our own history. So I find that it's so fascinating.
Well, and I always call it the dance, right? It's the lovely dance between over here and over here. And it's so powerful when you can already always realize and see, okay, that's cognitive dissonance, right? Because yes, you have the society or all the things over here, and then you have what's going on and over here. So I love that. I love that you're able to see that and really help your clients like recognize like what's going on here. So I'm really curious, like to go back to that term of intimacy, like what do you notice? Because I know it's so easy to be super busy these days, right? And yes, we want all this connection. And what I've noticed lately, with some clients I've been working with, and I mean, even myself, like we got two young children, right? We own, well, multiple businesses. And so it's really easy to get like in the business place, right? Your parents and your all of the things. And then what does it look like to create that close relationship, like as partners, not just business partners and like parent partners, but to take it to the next level and even within teams, right? So they're actually getting to know your people versus it being more mechanical, more business, right? Results driven, right? Like, how do you shift that? Because I do know through my experience, when you shift that, I mean, everyone becomes unstoppable because now it's not just about the ROI, but it is about relationships and about humans and people.
Absolutely. Let's take your question in a couple of steps because I think that that's really rich content. And I think that so many people struggle with this. So many people struggle with this, right? You got two young children, you got businesses, we have life, and life is lifing, right? So it's not everything is not happening in isolation. Like life and daily things are happening. I think starting with the basics. I think that when we think about how we're stepping into relationships, it's important to understand what some of our unmet needs are. And I
Mm,
say this because this is foundational. If we don't do the work of childhood, if we don't understand the way in which we grew up, the way we were parented. Attachment matters. So a lot of us, as we grew up, our parents were doing the very best that they could, and they loved us, but there were still gaps. Sometimes we didn't feel seen. How did we respond when we didn't feel seen? Did we feel like we had to be so independent and self-reliant that we didn't have to depend on anybody else to give us the nurturing or to comfort us? Maybe we had parents that provided everything for us, but it was the emotional connection that was missing. So maybe we learned how to self-soothe, or we only learned how to self-soothe with others. So we have a deep fear of abandonment, or we have a deep fear of being, disappointed. So again, understanding what our attachment is and how that affects the way in which we do and step into relationships matters, because we might be tasking our partners to do the work that is ours. If I feel like I'm not seen and it is a signature theme of mine, I'm going to have those glasses on when I go into my relationships, when I go into my friendships. I'm going to be doing work and I might be over functioning and then wondering, well, hello, it is my birthday and where are all of the things? Or I'm going through something and where is everybody, right? Because you might be so really used to pouring into others that you lose your sense of self. And so now we bring that self to our relationship and to our intimacy. And we might be really swept away with doing for others that when by the time we make it to our intimate space, to our home outside, the kids are put down to bed, dishes are washed, and the night is here, or even the weekend, we don't even have enough space for ourselves, let alone our partners. And so how does even how we show up in our lives affect, and the cause and effect between when we don't give back to ourselves, how does that affect our intimacy, our energy, and the ways in which we show up at work? When I'm not sleeping, when I'm not taking care of myself, when I'm not eating on time, when my blood sugar is doing whatever it's doing, when I'm not walking and having fresh air and taking care of myself, how does that affect intimacy and energy? And two things. One, people tend to, particularly women, as we're moving through the life cycle, now we're hitting our 30s, 40s, and 50s, and now we have hormones that are impacting that. So we're not sleeping, but then now we're pushing up against menopause or perimenopause, which also affects sleep, because lower levels of estrogen and progesterone also affect our sleep patterns, also affect our energy and our moods. And so we feel less desire. And then, we'd rather sleep when we can or eat when we can than have the sex. And so I think that that's just kind of globally setting the stage for why it's so important to be intentional about intimacy. And to clarify, intimacy is how are you connecting emotionally, mentally, spiritually? How are you bringing intellectually? How are you bringing energy and life back to yourself and to your relationship? And do you compromise intimacy to kind of preserve yourself as like a self, as a survival mechanism? Do you sacrifice your own intimacy with yourself and with your partner in order to be in survival mode and take care of your most pressing needs? And most of the time, I would say yes, people sacrifice intimacy in order to take care of themselves. I think that what I suggest is a radical change of like really leaning into that sexual resilience and being intentional around closeness and intentional about giving back to your intimate life. And if you are partnered, to your partnership, or to yourself if you are single, because that is what is going to, I believe, is the antidote to really bringing joyful aliveness, awareness, and presence to your life and to your body when sometimes we neglect it.
So I'm curious as you're talking, especially, I mean, you're speaking to things that I'll admit I'm not there yet. I'm curious when you're talking about your app that's coming out, right? When you talked about like from family all the way up to the menopause piece, I'm really curious because my brain went there of like, okay, where does the role of the app perhaps come into play to support in supporting a woman who is learning about this? Because I will say a lot of this is like buzzwords and terminology, but are we really aware as women, like really what is going on? Like I had no idea actually when you talked about the sleep piece that was, I mean, I have two young children, so it's like the sleep is probably related to that. And the awareness piece, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And I'm really excited. I guess I want to unpack a little bit more of this app because I'm feeling like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is huge. Like what you're leaning into. Like I have a couple of friends that are in that space. And so, they're always talking about things. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what they're talking about. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I'm like, ooh, this is not something I'm excited about. So I love to know like where does this come in? And also just for, the women out there that are out there and, in these leadership positions that, I mean, I go back to the word intimacy, right? Being intimate with ourselves, but also what's coming to me is being intimate with your stage of life,
Yes.
right? So yeah, I don't know where we can go
Oh, yes.
there, Marissa.
Let's go all the places. Let's talk about how the app will support. The reason why this app even came to be is born out of my experience and my husband's experience of infertility. People tell you, especially the messaging that I got was don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, especially you're trying not to get pregnant. And then when you're ready, it was really hard. And so I was with fertility doctors and in fertility clinics in my early 30s. And it was devastating because I didn't know if motherhood was going to happen for me. And I recognize it, reproductive health, sexual health, mental health, a lot of places that still hold stigma, deep shame, and guilt for so many people. This was my space that I didn't know that I had a lot of guilt and shame around. So, my husband and I are trying to figure out what do we do next? Now, there's a financial toll because if you want to go forward with IVF treatments, that's $30,000 plus per cycle. And really trying to see whether this was a reality for me. We had experienced pregnancy loss, and I saw the toll that it took on my husband, but then realizing that he didn't really have a space to go to. So he started working more. And then I started doing whatever. And we had separate ways of coping with something that was really, really hard. Neither of us can see our life without being parents. And so we're at this period of time where we're like, well, what are we going to do? So we're just going to lean into the coping mechanisms that we know best. He's going to work and I'm just going to do like whatever I do, So it was so hard. And it wasn't until a big international move that we had to make for his job where, as life would have it, we were all we had. We didn't have any friends in that new place. We relocated to the Bahamas and we didn't have any friends. It was just the two of us. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter how beautiful your house is or how great your view is. If you don't feel that you have, joy or connection or purpose in your life, you will take it for granted. And so I think that it took that intervention of us moving and really having to lean on each other to get through it together. 6 months later, I was pregnant, but, which was, I swear I felt like it was a miracle. But I mean, after that, I started to see clients, friends, colleagues really up close go through their fertility journey, whether it was pregnancy loss, fibroids, endometriosis, you name it. I was watching and bearing witness to other people going through it. And certainly it wasn't just them, because I'm a relationship therapist. I was seeing the impact on partners and recognizing that people weren't having these important conversations that can actually take their relationship to the next level. The reason why I say that is because anytime you go through anything difficult, there's something that's called post-traumatic growth. That this experience, as difficult as it is, can actually be a breeding ground of incredible insight, amazing presence and introspection, and could be a source of connection for people, because now you're not just showing up, you're showing up for each other in a very different way. And so That's why Fertility Haven was created, to support, the whole person. People talk about whole person healthcare. No, this is about the person and their communities, and this is about the person and their partner. So the app pushes notifications not only to the partner or the user, but also to their haven. This haven can include their romantic partner, their husband, their spouse. But if you're going through a scenario like egg freezing, or if you are menopause, but you're widowed or you're on your own, you don't have to go through this journey by yourself. And so pushing notifications and coaching to your support network so that they know how to best show up for you, initiating conversations, insights, education, so that you can be doing this in community and skill building along the way. Now, when it comes to a reproductive health journey, it's a journey. So it's courses, educational content, reminders. Let's say you're doing going through a cycle, or maybe you're having a hysterectomy. Really being able to have support every step of the way, pre and post op, as well as how does the supporting partner or your network support you so that you can heal and then you can thrive afterwards. That's the foundation of the app.
Wow, that's so powerful, Marissa. Like, even just as you're speaking, like I was saying, like I do have a couple of friends who are going through menopause and premenopause. I have no idea. And I also know it's not always the easiest thing to talk about, right? Like it's the intimacy piece, right? Like there's so many different facets to this word, but it's going back to all these different personal layers, and just to have that community. I go back to the saying that was always drilled in me, is like leadership is only the top, right? And what I experience too is not just the leadership. And if you're operating from that, then you also operate sometimes very lonely in various different points of your life. And what you're doing here is you're helping close the gap. You're helping those that we are connected with or close to share information that maybe not yet prepared or comfortable enough to vocalize it, because you're creating that openness and that communication so people can have that awareness. And I love the prompts, because I know even like as a partner with my husband, after even giving birth to two children, I mean, there's lots of things that go on. And, it's, yeah, we don't just start walking around and talking about all the things that happen. And
No.
it's important too. Like that's one thing I learned, especially after the delivery of my first daughter. It's actually really important. It's healing, which is what I'm hearing you say, which I didn't realize that until I was about to give birth to my second daughter. But the importance of having that conversation and talking out is that growth piece is so beautiful. And my brain just went to like all these other areas where I see this applicable. And it's so beautiful just in this area and area of supporting women, and not just women, but even the partners in all of this. So
So, it's BIPOC and LGBTQ plus inclusive, because we all have different journeys and different paths, and we honor everybody's unique journey and path. And so for me, it really is, as I continue birthing this baby into to the world, essentially, it's about the thoughtful design and curation of what's going to mean the most if you're going through a procedure. Let's say this is on your way to family building. I have fibroids and I have to get these fibroids or have a myomectomy in order for me to heal so that I can have my family. Then that's the support that's necessary. If it is that, I've had recurring, issues, and hysterectomy is what my doctor and I decided is the best path of treatment for me, but I'm 37. And so what is that going to mean for my intimacy? That's why I've created this app, because until now, you're like in the menopause bucket, which you're like, well, I'm not there yet. Or you're like, I'm not necessarily family building, or I am, but this fits, and some pieces fit and some pieces don't. This is the umbrella that holds us all, because it is women's health, it's women's reproductive health, but it's also the impact that many of our reproductive journeys has on our relationships and our sexual health, because we need support for all of it.
yeah. Wow. So when is this app set to be available, Marissa?
Yes, we are in development now. Yeah. So
Yahoo!
I'm so excited. It will be launched this fall. So we're putting the final pieces on, the final touches on it. We will be user testing it in June, and by July and August, tweaking, iterating, and will be available for the public in August. So if you want to try out the app and be one of the first to, really see how Fertility Haven can support you, please reach out at www.fertilityhaven.io, and that way you can be one of the first to be part of Fertility Haven.
Wonderful. Okay, we will have the link there in the show notes for you listener if you want to go and check that out and be part of the beta testers, because that is super exciting.
Yes.
So before the app comes out, because I know it's a few months away, I would love to, I guess, sort of wrap up on this in terms of looking at relationships, looking at building out, right, that 10 out of 10 relationship with your partner. What are some, I always think of challenges and stretches, right? Like in the leadership space, I spend a lot of time in, and we're like, we like to stretch our clients, and relationships is actually oftentimes like a really common topic that leaders actually bring to the table, right? Is because, they've got the success in their business and they're doing all of these things. And yet it's oftentimes, right, it's the relationship piece that tends to suffer. So I'm really curious to unpack a little bit of some yeah, like actionable steps, some challenges, some things that the listener could stretch into and put into practice to help close that gap so they really can not just say that they want that 10 out of 10 relationship, but actually go out and create the 10 out of 10 relationship. And as you said before, right, like mind the gap, like hop over that gap and close it so they really do get to not only for themselves, but model it for their children and just for the world to see, because that's really what's close to my heart. And so I would love for our next generation to see more of that and create more intimacy and connection and love and joy in our relationships and our families.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of things. We talk about minding the gap, especially for leaders. So now as I step into my role of coach, I put my Penn Wharton hat on. And, when I work with clients, one of the things that I think that is important to bring to the surface is that what works in the boardroom and the way in which we show up at work does not always serve us when we go home.
Mm,
Sometimes it's hard for us to
yeah.
transition that self from day to family, from work to home. Many of us are bringing work home just because you might be launching a new product. You might be, building out a new arm of your business. So it does require a little bit of TLC, but sometimes we can escape, and that can be an exit for the energy that the relationship requires in order for you to be 100% present, attuned, and aware to your partner, which then has a lot of ripple effects. So most of the times when couples come see me, it's I have a partner that works a lot and I never get to see them. I have a
Mm,
partner that works on holidays and I miss them. Or that person saying, I work because when I come home, like, is it a safe place for me emotionally? Is my partner asking, like, what do I need, and is it a soft place for me to land, or has home become a power struggle?
mm,
Right. So I want us to really think about what are some of the underlying dynamics that we're stepping into in our home life. Because look, I'm not taking away from any of the love and the life that you've built with the person. I'm talking about people in long-term relationships. Most of the couples that I see have been married for 14, 20, 25 years, 30, 35 years, 40 years. So you do a lot of life with your partner. That's your person. You love them. However, it doesn't mean that there are not still areas of improvement and ways in which both of you can emotionally stretch. When you've been with a person for a long time, you tend to be locked in patterns of behaving, communicating, doing conflict, or even, not dealing with some of the things that are underneath the surface. Intimacy is one of the biggest parts of that. 1 out of 5 couples are low sex to no sex marriages or relationships. 1 out of 5. So for many people who've been in a relationship for a long time, intimacy is the thing that suffers. And so does communication. So I would want you to take an inventory of where do you feel like you're at in your intimacy, not just the frequency of sex, because yes, while some people say, I want to have more sex, when you really boil down to it, it's not more sex. It's more connecting sex. It's feeling wanted. It's feeling desired. It's feeling connected. It's feeling like my partner enjoys this as much as I do. It means that I'm not going to my partner feeling like I'm inadequate if I have sexual dysfunction, or inadequate if I have pain during sex as a woman, or I have low sexual desire, that you're dealing with this as a team, because and looking at not only the relational aspects of why there's a lack of intimacy, is there trust issues that you're navigating through? Is there other issues of emotional closeness or distance or disconnect or resentments that are getting in the way of you really being able to open up physically and sexually with each other? And I would say the second thing is, biopsychosocial in my world. So biology, what biological factors could be impacting your intimacy right now? That factors into how you step into work as well. Do you have brain fog? Are you feeling like you have low energy? If you feel like you have low energy, you have brain fog, and you are taxed because everybody is bringing their decisions to your desk, well, what does that mean for your decision-making capabilities and how you're showing up and, leading your business? And so how are we tending to our physical health and our biology? So I would say, if you haven't had your annual, do it. If you haven't had a hormonal panel, I would suggest it, so that you can see where you're at with your blood pressure, working with what you have, what's showing up in your body right now. And also, if these levels are high, is it a cue on stress? These are really big indicators. If you're now seeing, onset diabetes, if you're now seeing higher blood pressure, these are indicators that work can also be impacting health.
Yeah.
And so again, are you tuning into your body? Are you tuning into not just, hey, I got another project to do, and you're just moving through the year? It's important for us to stop and take inventory and see how every piece of the puzzle is all connected to the overall well-being that is you. And then I think the last thing that I will say is sexual resilience is important for lifelong intimacy. Sexual resilience, I mean, we talk about resilience at work, we talk about resilience in a lot of different aspects, but I think sexual resilience is the piece that matters to me the most when talking about intimacy, because sexual resilience says that things are not going to be perfect, that sometimes we only want to connect when the conditions are perfect. There's when the kids are at sleepaway camp, or they're at their best friend's house, or we have time, or we're on vacation, or all of the things. I'm the queen of planning vacations for people. Yes, vacations are a wonderful intervention for you being able to go away and spend quality time with the person that you love. But we don't live in perpetual vacation, and life is gonna life. So how do you create sanctuary in your own house? How do you create sanctuary in your relationship? And how you create sanctuary within yourself, in the gap between your connecting times on trips and on all these different things? And the sexual resilience piece says that if there is sexual dysfunction, if I'm not feeling myself, if I've gained weight, if I've lost weight, if things have changed between us, we are on a mission to maintain connection. We are on a mission to work collaboratively to see what those blind spots are, so that we can work together to continuously evolve our intimacy. Because some of y'all out there are having the same sex you had 20 years ago, and it's not working for you. Okay? So it's okay to recognize and to forgive yourself for hey, it's been a while, or hey, I'm not showing up in my life the way that I want to. So instead of beating yourself up in your head,
Mhm.
give yourself the space and the grace that you deserve to have, because it's okay that it is what it is. But can this be, as we're exercising self-forgiveness, can we also flex that muscle to kind of step into the resilience that is required for us to navigate life's challenges? Because the only thing that's promised is that there are going to be challenges ahead, but how you navigate that can be the difference of you having the embodied intimacy that you desire, or feeling like you're in it all by yourself. That's
Mm.
my, that's my, I would suppose, uh, that's what I would say about that.
Well, and I love that. Life's lifing, right? I love that. I love that. That's my new expression. Life is lifing. And it's just like anything, right? I often say if it's not on the, like, not saying it's on the calendar, but if you're not aware of it, if it's not, the intention's not there, if you're not creating space for it, then yeah, life is gonna life and it's not gonna happen. So what does that look like when you
Every day.
take that self-inventory, right? And it's that slowing down to speed up, right? Taking a moment to pause. And I love how you even introduced, like, getting some even medical things done, that like your annual and some other information, because yeah, it's fascinating how you can find information that things are a little bit off and it could be affecting. And so what you don't know, you don't know. So get the data, right? Gather the data, get the information and support, leading to curiosity, and set that intention, right? I love the invitation. And I don't think I think I actually read this on your social media about really having that time to connect as a couple in relationship and look at your goals and look at that intention and what are you creating, and letting go of the perfection is actually going to what sort of
Let go of
like,
all of
yeah,
that. And like,
yeah,
what
the
does that look
expectation.
like? What does that look like daily? I think
Yeah.
sometimes people are like, I want what's over there that you don't
Mhm.
have. But what you do today is within your control. So how do you even move time in your schedule, and how do you even spend your day differently if connection and intention around your partner and building intimacy is important? And it's not also about your partner, it's about you. What do you need in order to get yourself into that intimate space, to have that responsive sexual desire? What is it that feeds you and fuels your desire and fuels your eroticism? Like I know that this is all about exploration, but like, what is it for you that brings you to that erotic state? And so how do we cultivate even some time every single day, for ourselves as well as for our relationship? So I would schedule, not scheduling sex, although you can do that. Scheduled sex and spontaneous sex is more sex. But, I would say that it's about scheduling the intention and the time every day. The ritual of connection is very important. And it can be something as small as making tea for your partner in the morning and having a minute or two to talk about your days together. It could be, a foot rub at night and sharing appreciations and like, winding down off of your day. These moments of connection carry you, because one day turns into the next. But as you add up these positive interactions with each other, you look around 2 months from now, a year from now, and you feel really good about the progress that you've made.
I love that. The positive interactions, right? And it's setting that intention on that, and right, what you focus on grows. So if you focus on creating those positive interactions, you're going to create more of those positive interactions. And that will, to me, it becomes like a pattern interrupt of the busy, busy, busy and the go, 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 of like being really intentional and looking for that, and not necessarily a more thing, but just looking at how you're going about your day and where from what you're already doing, can you integrate that and create those little interactions, that little bit of intimacy, right? And create that connection, that relationship, and then modeling it too, right? I think that that's so important for our children to model what that gets to look like and create that time and that space for connection, not just with our partners, but also with our children and our loved ones, just everywhere, even with our teams and our colleagues, right?
Absolutely.
So beautiful, Marissa. So if our audience wants to learn more about you, more from you, obviously sign up for the app. You shared a website. Is there any other place that you would like the audience to connect with you and be able to learn more about? I mean, you've got your retreats. I mean, you're doing so many amazing things. So
I mean, please feel free to reach out, XO Marissa Nelson, on Instagram. You can catch me on LinkedIn at Marissa Nelson LMFT or at www.intimacymoons.com if you want to work together.
Well, it's been such an honor to have you here today. And it's been so fun to just like unpack all of this, the intimacy,
You're
right?
fun. You're a good time. You're fun.
Is there is there any other sort of last little call to action or where you invite the listener, like what is something they could do today to, yeah, close that gap in their intimacy and their relationships with other people?
Okay, one, forgive yourself, because we're
Mm.
all where we are. And I think the number one thing that holds us back from moving forward is the guilt and the shame and the, beating ourselves up, the self-criticism of what we could have done and what we should have done. Let go
Mm.
of that. Know that you were doing the best that you could, and today is a different day. And if you want better for your life, you got to lean in and you got to do the work. So if that means picking up the phone and having a conversation with your partner and saying, listen, I'm sorry that I hadn't been as emotionally present for you or sexually present for you, or I've been holding on to this resentment that's been holding me back from you, but I'm willing to work on it. If it's you being single and trying to find love again and saying, I am writing a manifesto to myself that I know the kind of love that I want to attract into my life because I'm worthy and deserving of it, and that I'm going to get rid of the barriers that hold me back from having everything that I deserve. And you can start there.
Beautiful. And I also want to emphasize that you said pick up the phone, right? None of this text messaging stuff. You get to have
No,
that conversation.
pick up the phone. Thank you.
I love it. Well, right, with technology, it's so easy to hide it behind a screen and text message. But yeah, go out and have, if you got a part of that intimate conversation. And if you are calling in your partner, I love that invitation to, yeah, call it in. You are worthy. You are enough. You get to be unleashed and unstoppable in your love, in your life, in all your relationships. And Marissa, it's just been such a pleasure to have you here today. And I want to thank the listeners as well that are listening in and tuning into another episode of Unleashed Unstoppable podcast. Well, we'll see you all next week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.